genetically incompatible. But with molecular techniques, you can take a gene from a tree and put it directly into a carrot without having to drag all the other tree genes along with it.
Al Adamson, Calgene Incorporated. With the genetic engineering of food, a piece of DNA from one origin, a turtle for example, is isolated, removed, and infused into the DNA of another source, a corn plant for example. DNA is shaped like a twisted ladder and is called a double helix. Every gene which spans this double helix carries an instruction or code for life. Thus, the gene from the turtle that is pasted into the DNA of the corn could increase the protein of the corn. With this new agriculture, a handful of multinational corporations, again, all owned by CFR and Bilderberg members, have placed patents on food plants giving them assumed exclusive rights to control our food. This is preposterous, but true. 3 characteristics distinguish genetically altered foods. First, because the food is altered at the deepest genetic level, which would not happen naturally, it is impossible to know what will happen with these new combinations of genes when they are released into the environment. Second, this new food is owned by corporations, and the term monopoly now really takes on a whole new dimension, because one thing humans cannot live without is food. Third, crops that have individually adapted to different locations and environments for the last 1,000 years are now being turned into monocultural global crops, which could be much more susceptible to disease. The extent of what we are talking about is vast. 5 international agribusiness cartels control 95% of the non-hybrid seeds, food production and distribution facilities. Our best defense is to get ourselves educated, buy organic, get good seeds, and start growing our own foods. Chemtrails, poisons from above.
Look, up in the air. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman.
Unfortunately, it's not Superman, because we sure could use the superhero right now. But we do need to look up into the sky. Millions of people across our nation, England and Australia, have been contracting an upper respiratory sickness that manifests as a dry hacking cough. This cough usually stays with a person for weeks and sometimes months at a time. For the last several years, between the periods of late December to the middle of March, American health clinics have been jammed full of people having many of the same symptoms. It does not appear to be bacterial, and the doctors I have talked with say that though dry hacking coughs have not been uncommon in the past, the persistency with which this cough lingers and the numbers of people who are sick is something they don't understand. What makes this eerie is that there is reason to believe that this continuing cycle of sickness is man-made. For the last 3 years, credible people from around the nation are writing that military jets have been adding to JP-8 jet fuel the additive ethylene dibromide, EDB. The EDB is supposedly added to retard the explosiveness of the fuel. It is of note that EDB was a pesticide that was banned in 1983 for being extremely toxic. A normal contrail will generally disperse and dissipate in a relatively short period of time, while a chemtrail is a contrail with chemical additives, which for a period of time holds the vapor together like a spider web. Most people are not even aware that there is a potential problem. For those who have been studying this issue, some think that the government is spraying to affect weather patterns. On April 5, 2001, the Senate, with almost no publicity, approved $4.5 billion to restore funds for climate change programs. This is a huge amount of money, and information about these programs are kept under wraps by the media. Others believe that this spraying has more sinister implications. The Spotlight newspaper, now the American Free Press, has written several informative and interesting articles on this issue. and though there is no definitive confirmation concerning this issue, it is well worth our attention. Chapter 5. The Tail Wagging the Dog.
Israel controls the U.S. Senate.
The words of William Fulbright, former chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee.
The United States is likely to become, if it has not already become, a captive state of its client state, Israel.
James G. Aborisk, United States Senator. Our Bill of Rights is a magnificent document. The freedoms that our founding fathers enunciated in this document reflect the highest values of natural common law. The United States is one of the few nations in history that has, by law, put individual rights ahead of the power of the state. Because of the personal sovereignty afforded by the Constitution, individuals have been able to achieve higher levels of personal potential, and we, as a nation, have prospered. As we know, freedom is not free. And protecting and preserving these honored political ideals is the responsibility of all citizens who value independence. Of special interest in connection with the subject matter of this chapter are the freedom of the press and the freedom of speech. If we do not have an open and decentralized media where all sides of an issue are given full and unprejudiced coverage, then the mass of people will have only manipulated information that passes as news. Further, if the people have only manipulated information and are intimidated about speaking freely, then we have the makings for totalitarianism. In the United States, fundamental Christians are fair game to be ridiculed by almost all facets of the media and are often made to look hypocritical, closed-minded, and in many cases, stupid. But Christians are not the only group that are mocked in the media. Say the word terrorist, and a bearded, wild-eyed Muslim comes to mind for many because of the constant stereotyping done in the movies and on television. Almost every group, blacks, Hispanics, Hindus, etc., take the brunt of Hollywood stereotypes and the television network's derision. This is not always a bad thing, because in some cases it's good to laugh at ourselves. Nonetheless, we need to realize that though this lampooning is seldom done in an overt, mean-spirited fashion, this constant barrage does establish rigid archetypes in people's minds. However, there is one group that consistently seems to avoid being cast in an unfavorable light by television networks or in the movies, and that is the people of the Jewish faith. For many years, the following questions have been considered hypersensitive and out of bounds by the politically correct spin masters. How much does America give in aid to Israel? Who controls the movie studios, the television networks, and many of the largest banks? What are the actual Palestinian and Islamic points of view? And what is the difference between spiritual, modern, and materialistic Zionism? Having been consigned to the sacred cow categories, these issues have been intentionally passed over by the media and the universities. Even the majority of the patriot community have avoided these topics because of a lack of knowledge and for fear of being labeled anti-Semitic. Fortunately, in the past few years, some very courageous scholars have stepped forward to point out valid concerns about abuses that have been allowed to fester and expand under this veil of secrecy. What has made these individuals' positions so compelling is that there is no question that they are presenting their positions with intellectual honesty, and they clearly are not anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish. What these scholars have been quietly pointing out is the significant lack of scholarship and misinformation concerning